Nations. You're watching South Dakota Public Broadcasting. Programming is made possible with your annual membership in the Friends of South Dakota Public Broadcasting. Additional funding provided by Horton, a leading supplier of engine cooling system solutions worldwide. For current employment opportunities, 605-448-3307. The South Dakota Cultural Heritage Center in Pierre offers adventures and learning opportunities for all visitors through interactive exhibits, educational programs, and unique events, also featuring the South Dakota State Archives. History.sd.gov. First Dakota National Bank. Your worth isn't measured by the money you have. More information at accountforyourdreams.com.
Human trafficking. It's a difficult issue to talk about, and most people think it's a reality that happens somewhere else. The truth is, human trafficking is happening in South Dakota, and there are two major events that happen each year right here that have created a high demand for something called sex tourism. Coming up next on South Dakota Focus, we're going to talk about the ugly truth regarding human trafficking, but more importantly, what is being done to stop it. That's tonight's South Dakota Focus, and we are live right now.
You're watching a production of South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Hello and welcome to South Dakota Focus. I'm Stephanie Rissler. It's estimated that at least 16,000 men, women, and children are trafficked into the United States each year, with hundreds of thousands more people at risk of being targeted. Tonight is the first time we've talked about this issue on this program. Our guests deal firsthand with the victims and will share what they know about this ugly world. We are live, and as we go through the hour, if you have questions or comments, give us a call. It's a toll-free number, 1-877-825-5788, or you can join us through our social media outlets on Facebook and on Twitter. Let's now meet our guests. First up, Dr. Elizabeth Talbot, Associate Professor at the University of South Dakota. Next, Kimberly Duty, Shelter Director of Mita Mashke Tiki, which is the Lakota translation. The English translation is My Sister's Friend's House. Also with us is the organization's legal advocate, Carrie Stevenson. And tonight with us as well, Reverend Susan Omenson, founder and co-director of Be Free. Welcome to all of you. We'll talk more about what some of your organizations represent. But we'll first kind of dive into this because, like I mentioned, we've never talked about this issue before. We've seen it in the news a lot more lately within the last month to 6 months. So we'll find out why that is. Dr. Talbot, I'm going to start with you. A lot of folks might not really know what human trafficking is and that there are different forms of it. Talk to me about what you know. What is the definition and what are the different kinds?
Okay. Well, one of the kinds of trafficking is labor trafficking, and we see a lot of labor trafficking frequently with international victims, and these are individuals that are usually trafficked into the United States, often for the purpose of employment, and they're frequently smuggled in or they come in legally, but when they arrive, their documents are confiscated and they are trafficked, and they're forced to work for either no pay or very low pay. They're charged for their room and board, and they incur a debt that they generally could never pay off. And then there's sex trafficking, and this is where women, children, and boys are often trafficked for sexual exploitation, prostitution, stripping, nude dancing in clubs, sex slaves, and then there's a commercial exploitation of children for sexual purposes, and this is the trafficking of children under the age of 18 for the purposes of prostituting them or making them sex slaves. And there's another kind of trafficking that doesn't get as much attention, or there's a couple of other kinds of trafficking that don't get as much attention. One is mail order brides, and these are usually women who are brought into the United States internationally and marry men and are generally isolated and held captive, or just in isolated conditions and forced to be more or less domestic servants or sex slaves. And as Susan reminded me a few minutes ago, there is organ trafficking, where people are trafficked for the purpose of harvesting their organs. They're killed and their organs are harvested.
Okay. And we might talk about a few more. It sounds like there's a few more. Kim, I'm going to come down to you. You know, we learned, you know, what some of the different forms are. Is there one that we see more than the other?
There might be, I guess, in our world, there's a variety of different realities. You know, since I've been doing this work, starting in 2005, working at the shelter, first as an advocate, there were women coming in and who were prostituting themselves to make a living, to get things that they needed, everyday things, and it was, you know, something that was at first forced on them through various forms, you know, usually by an abuser. So we've always kind of at Mita, Mashke, Tiki, through, have always seen this. And so when we talk about realities, what is our reality is different from what is the community's reality of it. And you know, our shelter works towards providing a safe house, advocacy, and basically helping survivors get their lives back free of violence. So, and this is something that it's going to take more than 30 days to help get everything back together. So when we are working with victims, it can take anywhere from a minimum of 6 months to a year, because we have to get all the documentation, you know, we have to help find jobs, and just housing is a huge area in our community that is lacking. And so, you know, each individual that comes into shelter is a different story.
Okay. Carrie, I'm going to come to you. We'll go down the line and then we'll kind of jump around here a little bit. I want to know a little bit more about My Sister's Friend's House. How do you explain to people, and Kim started down that path, but how do you explain to people what this is?
This is a place where, yes, we can provide shelter if anybody's calling us, any women, children are needing that to get out of any type of abusive or bullying situation or stalking. And we also do what we call outreach. So if they can't get away because of their circumstances, because of economics, or because somebody's always watching them, and that sometimes we can go meet them someplace. And we provide that type of advocacy if we need to go to the hospital with them, if we need to go to court with them, if we need to perhaps talk to the police with them, or CPS and that. Because oftentimes when the women that we're working with get charged with a lot of different things, and Brendan Johnson is working so that, specifically with sex trafficking, not to charge the women. That does not mean that other agencies aren't going to look at them. So we help provide that advocacy so that they know what their rights are, or those resources. We refer people sometimes down to Susan's place to help with counseling and any of the things that Be Free can offer.
You talked about outreach. Are people ever surprised that we have to have a shelter such as this in South Dakota?
Oh, all the time. All the time. They don't understand it. And they don't understand that any of this abuse is much higher than people think. They think it's just, a 1 in a million type situation. And they don't realize that it has been there for a long time, and that 1 in 3 women easily need this.
Well, at the top of the hour, we talked about, we are hearing about it a lot more lately. And you always wonder, has it always been that way and now the media is just catching on? Why do you think we are hearing about it more?
I think, first of all, for organizations and people like us that have been speaking out for many, many years, we're finally being heard. We're finally able to talk to, for lack of a better term, the powers that be, and saying, we want attention on this. We want this to change. We want to bring this about. So it's those of us that have been speaking about it and speaking about it and speaking about it and just plugging away at it, that we've finally gotten that attention that we needed for the people that we work for or work with. And it's so that dedication, that willingness for us to speak out, and sometimes take a lot of flack. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to be able to take a lot of flack, don't you, Susan?
I have to just jump in here. Is that all right, Carrie?
Yes, you bet.
When we first went to the legislature to even get a task force to look at the possibility of trafficking in South Dakota, it never made it out of committee. 2 years later, that was after the South Dakota prosecutions. Everybody from the ACLU to the South Dakota Family Policy Council, two very different political organizations, all testified saying that, you know, we needed a trafficking bill. Right. So when I started really working in this area, I was working in Bangkok, Thailand, and Northeast India. I didn't think we had a problem in South Dakota. So I really get it when people tell me, what, we have this here? Because I was in that camp. But then, you know, like Carrie and Kim and whatever, survivors started coming forward. When I was home, when I wasn't overseas, when I was home, began sharing their stories. And I cannot tell you how many times I have said, you have got to be kidding me. Yes. And yes, there has been a lot of attention given to it, but that has a great deal to do with the fact that we have people like our U.S. Attorney, Brendan Johnson, and others who are effectively prosecuting. You know, we have law enforcement that is really going after Johns and perpetrators and pimps. It's been a long time coming. And all of us sitting here have taken a lot of flack.
Yeah. I want to talk, because I was reading a little bit through your bio and how you were in Thailand and you came back here. Talk to me about what Be Free is.
Well, we started as a global organization. Actually, it was just to support me as a missionary in Thailand, working in Bangkok. But in the last 2 years, we've done a dramatic shift, and now while we do have some global contacts, we're basically regional. And our focus has been really raising awareness and education, because there was just a population that was truly at risk. One of the things that I say is, you know, we're vulnerable because of passivity and naivety. And so we need to get the word out to parents, to teachers, to frontline service providers, you know, to vulnerable people. The list just goes on and on, because we do have a problem here. And it's not just Atlanta and Los Angeles or whatever. We have serious issues here.
Let's talk about two events that, when I was going through the information, the rally and hunting season. Is sex tourism the right wording, or?
Sex tourism is a good name for it. That's a term, for instance, that is used for the World Soccer Cup, for sites like Bangkok, where people will go knowing that they can buy sex in sex clubs and whatever. Sporting events, all of these sort of things can be a cover for the reality that's underneath.
And that reality is happening here.
That reality is happening here. I have worked with survivors. I have worked with women who have been trafficked during the hunting season and Sturgis. Now, these women here can really talk about the hunting season, because it's our native women who are most at risk during the hunting season. I've heard horror stories about some of the things that have happened to women who have been recruited off of India, out in Indian country here in South Dakota. Yeah.
We have an email that came in, and I'm going to ask it real quick. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but it does say, the Keystone Pipeline will increase the amount of human trafficking, and will our state have the resources to handle the problem?
No, this is something we're trying to all prove.
And we look at North Dakota and our sister programs that are up in North Dakota and have already gone through this process of the influx of the workers and what those workers are doing to their community and what they're bringing in. And it's just horrific, you know, the prostitution, the forced, you know, it.
Increase of violence.
Yes, all of the violence is increased with, you know, domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, intimate partner violence,
Bullying, you know, it just goes on and on.
On our website, if somebody is really interested, there is an article about a young girl that was being trafficked all the way from Central America, a 12-year-old. A highway patrol person pulled this van over and discovered her hovered in the back seat of this car, about 12 years old. Right. She was being trafficked to the oil fields. This happened outside of Worthington recently. So it's not just domestic trafficking that's taking place, it is international trafficking. I went up to the oil fields, and I know you've been there too.
Yep.
This was in the very beginning when it was just really bursting, and my partner was just up there recently. And the challenges are huge, and it needs to be a part of this consideration. What are we willing to give up in the name of finances or extra money or whatever, but that will directly affect the quality of life in our state and safety for women and children.
I want to bring back, because the pheasant season is right around the corner. You guys mentioned what we're seeing. Have you heard, do you know, is local law enforcement working with folks like you who are at the front line to try and combat this as it's right around the corner? Kim?
You know, just like there's been a human trafficking task force that's been created. There's also been law enforcement that work, 2 officers who work really closely with us when they get calls regarding cases that they think that are specifically dealing with this. They call us and our advocates to come in and make sure that the women are taken care of, so to say, to make sure that, you know, they're not looked at as criminals, because again, no one wants to wake up in the day and say, oh, I think I'm going to go sell myself, you know, or I think I'm going to prostitute myself. This is something that is forced upon women and victims, because we know that men are victims too, and boys and girls. So we work really tight and closely with the Sioux Falls PD.
And to go on with that, did you notice what Kimberly said? We have 2 officers that specifically do this in Sioux Falls. It's the resources. You know, we are a 24/7 shelter, and we're 24/7 advocates. It's still the resources. You know, at times, if you're on the crisis line with somebody and somebody else is trying to beep in, and you always get that sinking feeling of, I missed the call, I hope they leave a message, or I hope they call back. Because that can happen. And so when you were talking about all this with the pipeline, with the pheasant season coming up, looking at our resources and what else we can do.
And you know, we know that not every hunter, not every biker is going to be a perpetrator, a trucker. So what we're asking for is, like the truckers who are against trafficking, we're asking that hunters come together and unite against trafficking and all that entails that domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and the same with the bikers. We're networking with various bikers, various hunters, various ranchers to inform them of upcoming things and to educate them on what they can do as far as be aware and be proactive.
What kind of reaction are you getting from the hunters and the bikers when they hear about what's going on and you are asking them to step up and help out? What do they say? How do they react?
You know, at first they're kind of blank. They're just so astonished that this could be happening in their community. And once we start, you know, going in deeper and deeper and deeper into it, they get excited that they can be on board and learn about how they can inform others in the community and just come together.
And what's really exciting, and I think it's really neat, is they've all looked at us and said, "Are you okay? Are you protected? What can we help you with?" And that's really means a lot to all of us, because they know that we go 24/7. They know that we're women, and they know that, you know, that in itself can be very dangerous for what we do, as we were talking about with taking flack or hearing of that. So they become very protective, and that's very nice. That's very nice to hear that they want to stand by us and help this out. So, you know, there will always be in any group that don't want to believe it, that want to say derogatory things about us or the survivors that we're working with. But quite a few are really stepping up to the plate. So seeing that social change, seeing that mindset coming about, really makes all of us feel good. And so we can keep doing our stuff.
And I think there needs to be a realization that we all have seen what we're talking about. Be Free regularly does outreach during the hunting season. We're out at the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. We are in the clubs. We are in the bars. We are on the streets. We are really doing the very best we can so that we can authentically say, this is what is happening. It's not hearsay. And we're working with the victims. We're working with the survivors. You know, to realize that there are towns, there's for instance, a town, I won't mention it, where we've done outreach, that during the hunting season, 27 bars open up in this little town and 4 strip clubs. Okay, that's
we all know which one you're talking about.
And we've been there. We've seen it. And I need to tell you, some of the things that we have seen with our eyes and heard, experienced, my partner and I, she also has been with me in Calcutta, Northeast India, Bangkok, in Africa, in brothels and whatever. What we have seen in South Dakota has been worse in some of these venues. And that is a hard thing for people to wrap their arms around, but it's the truth.
Dr. Talbot, stay. I'm going to come to you in just a few minutes to talk about some of your research. We've got some emails and some phone calls that are coming in. Just a reminder, tonight would be the night. If you have a question, if you have a comment, you don't have to leave your name if you don't want to. Give us a call. It's toll free. You can also have our phone producer take your question down for you, and I'll ask it on your behalf. It's 1-877-TALK-PTV. Or send us your thoughts by email to sdfocus@sdpb.org. Dr. Talbot, as we talked about, you've really been researching this for a while now. What changes have you discovered since your beginning, efforts to look at this and where we are today?
Well, awareness is a big thing. When I first began studying human trafficking, as everyone has said, people were absolutely shocked to think that it would happen in the United States, and they're continuing to be shocked, but becoming more and more aware that we are dealing with this. Essentially, it's an evil that can't be described in any other way. The United States is the second largest consumer of human trafficking in the world. And that's a pretty bitter pill for us to swallow, given the fact that we fought a very bloody war in the 1800s to free slaves. And the overarching denominator is essentially poverty. Traffickers go after people who are in need, people who are vulnerable, people who don't have any money, people who need food, who have been abused, and they're very cunning in what they do. When I first began studying human trafficking, one of the things that they used to talk about at the rescue and restore meetings was that traffickers were about 20 years ahead of the police and advocates in terms of knowing how to do this, knowing their patterns. But we're catching up, and we're beginning to prosecute more and more traffickers and beginning to recognize the patterns. And it's because of advocates like Susan and Kim and who've been out there on the front lines working with women and talking with them and raising awareness. So,
at this point, those that are targeted, are they typically brought into our state, or are we seeing that they're already here? Do we know? Most of them are already here.
You'll get some of it, but the majority, they're already here.
Majority of our own citizens, which is also should be something that should be a wake-up call.
Right.
During the events, like we talked about, the rally and the hunting season, there are people who are trafficked in from around the United States. But for the most part, if there is such a thing as everyday trafficking, I don't know how else, a large percentage would be our Native women and others who are vulnerable because of poverty or abuse in our own state.
Well, this is what I want to do now. Susan, your organization has a video that you put together. It's on your website, and it really does educate people as to what is happening in South Dakota. You've mentioned U.S. Attorney Brendan Johnson. He's featured in it. He actually had hoped to be here tonight. He's landing, his airplane should be landing about right now, so he's not with us tonight. But we're going to take a look at this video. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. Just a note that the video might contain some material that some viewers might find disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. Here's the video.
There was evil in them and the kind of things that they were capable of doing. I was scared for my life. I had no idea that I was being trafficked while I was being trafficked.
Oftentimes people in the Dakotas think that we're immune from issues like human trafficking, that human trafficking is something that goes on in larger cities, but not here in the Dakotas. And that's not correct. But it's not sweatshops in Thailand or brothels in Bangkok. What we have in South Dakota is more what I would call homegrown. Anytime you have large gatherings of men, that creates the potential for problems. These young women find themselves in a very difficult position oftentimes. There's no question that there's prostitution that goes on during hunting season. When you have large gatherings of men, there is going to be a market there for this sort of human trafficking.
I think that we have to go way back in history. You know, the government coming in, taking up our land. I think that is the point at which we became more and more vulnerable.
Oftentimes in rural communities, including in Indian country, the individual that wants to purchase the sex will know the person who is offering up the young child for sex. Sometimes, sadly, what we see is bartering. So someone will say, look, I've got a niece and you can have sex with her in exchange for a couple cases of beer.
It has to do with poverty. It has to do with alcoholism. Our families have broken down. And so I think all of that combined makes us very vulnerable.
Similar to the way, frankly, a pedophile would groom a potential victim. They will go out and recruit women to become part of these commercial sex trafficking rings. They'll make them all sorts of promises. And frankly, oftentimes be almost a father figure.
I was at a vulnerable point in my life, and that's one thing that these guys look for is vulnerability. They don't go after a woman that seems strong and seems like she's got everything together. I was going through a separation with the person I'd spent 10 years of my life with.
It will oftentimes start as, hey, why don't we earn a little extra money by doing this one time?
You numb yourself. The drugs that they'll give you, the things they'll do for you to make you think it isn't bad. Just because a woman seems like she likes it doesn't mean that she does. She's scared. It was the shame and then the fear, and I owed him money all of a sudden. He had me in a home I couldn't afford to pay for, a car payment I couldn't pay.
So you have an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old girl, she wants out. And the pimp will say things like, well, look, I also know you have a 12-year-old sister. You're going to continue to do what you're doing.
If I ever didn't do what he wanted me to do, he was going to hurt my children.
We've seen savage beatings. We've seen rapes. Even if initially they went willingly, if at some point they were the victim of threats, fraud, or coercion to keep them in that situation, then we have a prosecutable federal offense. Here's the challenge. The federal law enforcement in South Dakota, we don't have a lot of manpower. So what we are really dependent upon in those types of cases are faith-based organizations, domestic violence shelters, folks who are oftentimes the first responders.
It's an amazing feeling just to know that they're not going to hurt other women the way that they hurt me.
What we want the perpetrators of these crimes to know is that we're going to be behind every corner. If you're engaged in this sort of behavior in South Dakota, we're going to get you. And when we get you, we're going to put you away for a long, long time.
And that's a video that you can see on the Be Free website. Reverend Omenson, that's something you guys put up there. Talk to me why you did this video.
Well, one of the main reasons was we could not effectively cover all of the areas that wanted a speaker to share about what was really happening. Also, oftentimes they said, well, we have 20 minutes for you to tell us everything there is to know about trafficking. So we thought the best way to do this would be to have an excellent professional video done that would tell the whole story. And very fortunate for us, you would think that U.S. Attorney Brendan Johnson had been scripted, but not. He gave us this great interview and we wove then the rest of the story around it. We're very excited about it. We want to offer this DVD so that anybody in the community can use it. It's going to be up on our website. We also will have hard copies available at a very, very reasonable price if they want to contact us on our website. And in addition to that, we're going to be making packets that people can also create their own handouts. So if you're like a parent, we're going to recommend that these handouts might be applicable. If it's a church group, we would suggest these. If it's a law enforcement, we're going to suggest these so that they can be downloaded off of our website. That will probably be within the month. So this is just our gift to the community and our way to really get the word out. Also on that DVD on our website, if you go to the place that says Survivors, we have the full testimony of 2 survivors that we've worked with. One is the young woman that is on the DVD, and another is a woman who was trafficked at the age of 6 here in South Dakota. So it's not just adults that are trafficked in our state, it is children. So their full stories are on the website too.
Okay. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from Sergeant Gierman. He's with the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Department. But before we do, I want to get through a few things, including a couple emails. Kim, this one I'm guessing you'll probably want to handle. Would you touch base on how this is happening in the tribal casinos?
What we're seeing in the casinos is that we know that basically we have some of the poorest communities in the state. And so people are having to use sexual transactions to get their basic necessities. And so they're going to casinos, meeting up with, what lack of a better word, Johns, and they're performing these sexual transactions and getting for the necessities that they need. And it's young girls, it can be teenagers down to,
Excuse me, 5 and 6, like Susan said. And it can be with mothers and daughters, fathers and daughters.
Carrie, I want you to kind of talk about, you know, we've talked about how some of the people, you know, those that are in poverty situations and whatnot, but what are those people that want to go out and they want to target somebody, what are they looking for?
Well, they are looking for vulnerability, whether it's money, whether it's attention. They're looking for people that are isolated. Sometimes, though, it's an opportunist thing where they see a bunch of young girls hanging out together and who tends to be kind of the lone wolf. And so they'll look at that. It's not always people that are in a poverty situation.
Right. Okay.
And that's a very important thing.
Okay. So it could be all classes, all ages.
Absolutely.
So a young girl sitting at home on her computer in a...
Absolutely. We've had young girls who have been trafficked as a result of hooking up with somebody on Facebook from Sioux Falls. At a training recently, it was said by somebody from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Kevin Colliner, said something that I think that was really shocking. He said, my office has worked with a girl from every high school in Sioux Falls.
Yes.
So that, you know, that is shocking. One of the first women that I worked with, survivors, actually she was a young woman, she was trafficked as a result of being picked up by a pimp in the food court at the mall here in Sioux Falls. Held captive for 2.5 months in an apartment by 3 guys and prostituted. Her parents thought that she was a runaway. But here she was. This happened in Sioux Falls.
And most of the ones, it isn't even about that they don't have a good relationship with their parents or they don't have a good relationship with this. It's while it's about the women and children that are being trafficked, what you have to look at are the sellers and the buyers. That's what you have to look at.
Okay. When we come back, I want to talk about how we can start helping, what we need to look for. But right now, I do have Sergeant Jason Gierman. He's on the phone with us. He's with the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Gierman, can you hear us okay? Sergeant Gierman, this is Stephanie. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Thanks for calling in tonight. You know, we've been visiting with the panel here about the issue. From your perspective, being up there in the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office, you know, how involved have you guys gotten with the mission in stopping this? Has your efforts increased over the last 6 months to year?
Well, I think what I can tell you is that the awareness level for us has increased. You know, the Sheriff's Office and has been able to send us to some training on how to deal with the victims in this and just basically be more aware and have law enforcement be available to to these other non-governmental organizations that you see on your panel there, and joining up with them has made a big difference.
Now, you talked about your awareness level, you know, that's there, it's going up. Are you guys seeing an increase in the trafficking going on in the Sioux Falls area since you've become more aware?
You know, I think it's always been there. I'm not going to say we've seen an increase. Again, it's just we're more aware of it, and I think the community is more aware of it. So obviously it's out there, and there may be an increase due to that.
Okay. One of the things we talked about earlier were the two seasons, the rally and hunting season. Hunting season is around the corner. How do offices like yours, the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Department, and other law enforcement offices around the state, are you guys gearing up for these seasons? I mean, how do you prepare knowing that this is expected, it's going to be happening?
Well, I know, I can't speak for the rally, but I know they've had other task force out there that have done some work this year on it. And, you know, obviously Minnehaha County is in Sioux Falls, but we're not really the base for the pheasant hunting. So, you know, we're not directly involved, but we may become indirectly involved with assistance, you know, assisting other agencies in this.
Okay, all right. If somebody's watching tonight and they fear that they know someone is being held against their will, if they are being trafficked, what is your advice to them? Should they go straight to you? Should they have that person go to somebody like Kim or Carrie? What do you tell folks?
Well, it's whatever they're comfortable with. I would suggest that they come straight to their local law enforcement agency. You know, there's other ways also. There's Crime Stoppers. There's the web-based crime tips that we have through our office. You know, there's all kinds of avenues through the media to get the information that we need to stop these people and to find the victims. So whatever these people are comfortable with, and that's a good thing about having these other organizations involved, to have other avenues if they're not comfortable with coming to the police.
Okay. Carrie touched on this a little bit earlier, but I kind of want to hear from you. You may have people that want to come to law enforcement for help, but they're worried because there have been drugs involved or prostitution. I guess, what advice do you give for those who have that worry?
My advice would be that you are a victim. We're not here to throw victims in jail, and I think through education for law enforcement, this attitude has changed. You know, a lot of these victims have been probably arrested in the past, maybe have experienced jail and do not like the police. So I would just stress that our attitudes have changed. And again, I'm going to bring up the other organizations that, you know, they're welcome to go to them too and start there.
If there is fear that the person who has control over them may harm them, is there protection from local law enforcement for situations like that?
Yes, not directly from local law enforcement, but this is where the advocacy groups will come in, and the victims' witnesses and so forth and so on. That's where we look to them for the help, and that's why they've created this unique task force. Most of the task force that we're involved in is only law enforcement. In this case, you know, they've involved these other community organizations, which has been very beneficial.
All right. Sergeant Jason Gierman, I thank you for taking the time to call in and visit with us tonight, and we'll go from here. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I want to come back because I do want to start talking about how we can help. Dr. Talbot, I'm going to start with you. We talked a little bit about what those that are targeting look for. If I'm a mom or anybody, a parent, and I'm worried that my daughter has been targeted, are there certain things that somebody who is, you know, under the control of someone else does or acts that I could look for?
Probably a change in behavior. A change in grades. Often you will read accounts of young women who are trafficked while they're still living in the home of their parents, and usually their grades. They begin receiving failing grades in school. The relationship with the parents is more distant because traffickers often try to isolate them from their family and from their friends.
You know what,
yes.
Carrie, I'm going to come to you on this one, because as the mother of a teenager, I can say that a teenager will act that way even if life is grand at home. What cues besides some of these would we see? I mean, would we see scarring, bruising? Would we see physical?
There's a possibility that you will see that you will see a possibility of them cutting themselves. You will see maybe a change in their dress, as she was saying. Yes,
how do you ask them? How do you approach?
You had that conversation. You know, as a mom, even though they're grown, you know, there was my worry too. I was able to just sit down with my daughters and just have that conversation and notice and say that I'm worried. And with the people that we work with, it's the same type of thing. You know, having that conversation, asking those hard questions. And sometimes it is very difficult to ask those questions.
You know, I'm going to interject something here. There's a new DVD out that's produced by Shared Hope International called Chosen, and I think it's a DVD that the parent of every teenager should watch. And I think that children from 8th grade through high school or even college should see this DVD because it's the account of a young high school girl talking about how she was trafficked and just how easy it was for a very normal, healthy young teenager who was a good student, who had aspirations to go to college, was almost trafficked, and how difficult it is to convince these kids that they are victims. And
they don't often see it that way.
Yes.
You know, and the other thing too is that it's a continual educational process with our younger generation. You know, when my 14-year-old daughter can tell me, Mom, I know what's going on in that neighborhood, and I know the men that you're talking about, and that they are doing this in a local neighborhood which she frequents. I mean, for my daughter to have that source of awareness really has shown me that, you know, I've actually done a good job at educating her, and she reaches out to her friends.
Right, exactly. That's the next step with it.
Yeah. And kids need to protect their friends. You know, often kids have this code of silence, and they need to understand that these things that are happening to their friends could be something that could cause their friend to lose their life or to be trafficked and never heard from again. And they need to understand that they need to come forward and protect one another as well.
Susan, I'm going to come to you for this one. Sergeant Gearman talked about their awareness level going up at the local law enforcement officer. What about when it comes to those that deal with us on you know, our physicians, social workers? Do you think that awareness is there among that type of
Well, we've
folks?
all been doing training for what we call frontline service providers, and that has been very helpful. We're getting more and more referrals, for instance, like from social services, from physicians, from clinics, all of that sort of thing, because these people really are the ones who oftentimes do see the signs that you were talking about, that people have come for help. There's some excellent training materials that are out there now that are specifically focused for these types of groups. And yes, they need to be educated. And I used to be a teacher. I used to teach kindergarten and first grade. And now as I look back on it, I think, you know, there were things even in my own classroom with my little ones, students, that now I look back and I go, I think there was abuse going on there. But I really didn't have that antenna. And so teachers, yes, all of these persons need to be educated, and they need to understand that it could be happening, you know, in their place of work.
I want you to touch a little bit more on the task force, because we've mentioned it tonight, but we've not really talked about
The
it.
task force is fantastic.
Yes.
At first, it started out with just a small group, and I know BeFree was a part of that as an organization. But then very wisely, what they did was make it the task force really just two task force. One that's just strictly law enforcement. But that is huge because they all came together, from the sheriff to the attorney's offices to anybody that's involved with law enforcement, and said, we're laying aside our agendas, the territory, whatever it might be. This is a serious enough issue that we will each take our piece, make sure that we're working together on these cases so that we can effectively care for the survivors and reach a successful prosecution. That is huge. That all came about through the efforts of Junior League, by the way, really pushing that forward. Yes. They also have formed then an organization that we are all a part of, that are sitting here, of people who all have a piece of this, working with survivors, raising awareness, whatever, that are part of the general public or nonprofits, whatever. So,
and that networking ability, really enables any of us in any of our capacities to be able to help with the survivors. And so that's again another huge thing, to be able to offer that.
An email that came through, her name is Carolyn, and she wants the panel to give feedback on how the community can actively help get the word out on a day-to-day basis. I don't know who wants to jump on that first.
I'd like
Carrie?
to start. First of all, just going to the website, looking at the DVDs, getting some of that information. Being aware when you're driving down the street or you're at your local shopping center, not just of girls, but who are those buyers that are coming around? Who are those sellers? Really looking at who's in your neighborhood, or when you go to another neighborhood, being aware of any of that type of activity. And as far as helping, I'm in agreement. Would I have a problem going up maybe to somebody that I thought was being trafficked or something like that? It would not be the safest thing to do. I would call a law enforcement. I would call the people that I know. I think that it's great that people want to help, but I would caution them so that the survivor or the person being trafficked, as well as themselves, would not be at risk. If you're a healthcare profession, there's questions that you can ask, such as, do you have your own documents? Are you in control of your own documents, your money, things like that? Just asking questions, or just simply saying, are you all right?
Dr. Talbot, on average, does help come for victims because they seek it, or is it because there was an arrest or something and they eventually get that help, but it was because of something that happened that pushed them in that direction?
Usually I think it's something that's happened that pushes them in that direction. It's very difficult for a victim to escape, and it's dangerous for a victim to attempt to escape. Traffickers are vicious people, and they would kill a victim rather than let them escape. And so most, I think, are assisted in some way, shape, or form.
Opportunities where they can do that. Yeah. This is why the awareness. This is why putting our pamphlets, our cards, letting other people know who to contact, so that they could call us.
And for example, the case in Cincinnati where the 3 young women were held captive for over 10 years. It took that long for them to get an opportunity to escape, and 2 of them stayed in their room because. Who knows why? But I would suspect that because they knew that if the one who was trying to get out was caught, that she would be beaten, and the other 2 would at least be able to help her. And J.C. Dugard, another example, who was held for 18 years, had one opportunity to ask for help, and that was 18 years later when he had to take her to meet with his parole officer because he'd been out in the community with the 2 children that he'd fathered. And then there was a case in '82 with Johnny Gosch, And that was before we even had the name human trafficking. And he was held for close to 10 years as a sex slave.
We have less than 2 minutes left.
Can I just say one thing, Stephanie? I want to answer what this caller or email person said about on a daily basis. I think it starts with just how we live our lives. What are the priorities? What are we teaching our children? How do we value life? How do we value women? How do we value children? How, you know, these are the important things. We live in a world that is so broken. And a big part of our broken world is we experience a lot of sexual brokenness. When you look at our society and what we value and what we hold up, what we watch on television, the kind of music that our kids are listening to or whatever, it has really devalued who we are as people. So that's where it really begins. And I'll just end with this. And we need to begin to deal with the demand side of this whole issue. The focus needs to change. Why are we allowing people to use other people in this way? What is behind that? What's the backstory?
We've got about 20 seconds left. Carrie, your best advice to encourage people to get the help they need or help people that need that?
My best advice is always knowledge, and that always to be looking and education with it. The other thing is if you can make a phone call, whether it's not an emergency, whether you get our crisis line number, whatever agency, call.
And your house isn't the only house. I was looking at the South Dakota Coalition Indian Domestic and Sexual Violence. There's help all over the state.
Right. Those are our sister programs,
All right, very good. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, Dr. Elizabeth Talbot, Associate Professor at the University of South Dakota, Kimberly Duty, Shelter Director of Mita Mashke Tiki, I hope I got that right, and thanks to Carrie Stevenson, the organization's legal advocate, and thanks to Reverend Susan Omenson, founder and co-director of Be Free. For a repeat of tonight's show, you can visit our website. That's at sdpb.org. There you can catch the entire thing. And always remember, if you want to become more socially involved with any of our programs here at SDPB, follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Now, be sure to join us next week as we begin a series of programs that will examine infrastructure in South Dakota. From now until the end of the year, we will be focusing on a number of issues, everything from housing shortages to our reservations, to a declining population, including our bridges and our roads. Next week, we are going to zero in on rural communities. A lot of communities have a declining population, but some are seeing a lot of folks move into town, but they're not seeing their infrastructure grow, and that is a problem. That's next Thursday, September 26th at 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain. Now, for all of us with South Dakota Public Broadcasting, thanks for being with us. Good night.